Greeting, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. It is me, once again, screaming into the void of the internet. Pretty much a freaking double upload, considering that I had to come back to this crap at 8 o'clock a.m., man. So I'm over here like 7:30, pretty much. Right out. 4 hours of sleep and is what it is. To be honest, it's fine right now. I know one time, like, I was really out of it, though, but this time I'm not doing too shabby, you know. I'm not doing too shabby, so that's pretty alright. But something that I was going to go ahead and talk about to try and, keep myself awake and get ready for the day. Oh no, not these freaking mosquitoes. What I really wanted to, I guess, have a little bit of a chat about was mainly just the fact that I find it very, how should I say this? I find it very odd, who you interact with on a daily basis and whatnot. And the fact that they don't really understand, like, the full weight behind, like, the decisions that they make, right? I'm listening to, say, some of these guys, pretty much like last night, and they talk about how, like, their baby mamas are giving them a hard time and stuff like that. And, he's like, he's not a bad dad, and she tries to make it seem like, he wasn't there, because there are, like, two guys that have kids, but they both have trouble with the kids, which isn't surprising, considering, like, the kind of freaking age that you live in. They have trouble, like, actually, like, being with the kids, because, they're freaking moms. And I really despise the term baby mama, but it's just become so redundant and, like, the default now, instead of just saying, like, the mother of your kids or something like that. But my thing is, at the end of the day, you chose to freaking lay up with this freaking person, right? But did you see them as mother material? Because I'm not one of these cocksuckers that says, oh, well, you chose her and, she's never accountable. Not by a long shot, but you gotta understand that there were signs in the picture, that you just probably chose not to listen to, right? You see this a lot when people get involved in any kind of relationship, right? That there are signs that, maybe external people can see, but the love goggles blinds a lot of fellas to seeing what's up. So, hearing them talk about it and whatnot, like, I just realized that, realistically speaking, man, like, I've said this many times, I have no desire for kids, right? And on the off chance that I would want a kid, personally, at this point, I think the only way to even go about it, right, is to just go through surrogacy. You have that option. I don't care if it's a more complicated option. It's worth it. Because the fact of the matter is, it's cheaper in the long scheme. At this point, divorce or child extortion and alimony and all that bullcrap is an outright goddamn near guarantee at this point. And they'll always make it seem like you weren't a good dad, you weren't there, you didn't make sacrifices and all this crap when you were 9 times out of 10 the main breadwinner, right? And it's... I don't understand how men can do stuff like that and then not take accountability and just be like, I kind of effed up with that, Maybe not necessarily regret the kids. I don't usually see that many guys that regret the kids, but they always regret the fact that they chose that chick to have kids with. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here, dude. Like, you gotta be real for a minute. These people make some very freaking stupid decisions, and then they don't want to take any kind of responsibility for them. That's why I've always said, like, for me, personally, like, the full desire for a family and whatnot, like, I don't have it because, number one, I don't have the money, right? Number two, like, who the heck do you even choose to have a family with? Like, all these guys just thinking about, getting this freaking gal of their dreams and stuff like that. Even if she is that way now, can you guarantee she'll stay that way for at a minimum of 18 years? Because the fact of the matter is, change is constant. I know that kind of sounds like ironic and redundant, but yes, change is a constant. You know? Oh, people change. Well, no crap. You know, you were with someone for 18 years. I'm sure you're going to look different. I'm sure that, you know, your world perspective is going to change a bit in 18 years. The fact of the matter is, most of these people don't even last freaking 18 months when it comes down to marriage and relation craps these days. It's always something. It's always something. You know? I'm just at the point now where it's like, I really feel like, especially in today's day and age, folks, you gotta hold yourself to a higher standard. Not necessarily because you're better than someone, but because you don't want to make the same mistakes that they did. You know, a lot of people try and interpret, you know, people who see this stuff as like goody two-shoes or you're uppity or something like that. It has nothing to do with it. I don't think I'm better than anyone because of the decisions that I did or didn't make, you know. And even if I had tons of money, I wouldn't consider myself better than anyone, you know. Like, things just finally started working out for me. And even then, you could argue that it's luck, you know, like, there's no denying that, you know, if I was born in, say, the Middle East, I'd probably be trying to freaking Allahu Akbar or, you know, freaking, I don't know, marry a freaking underage person. Pause, YouTube, relax, but I'm just calling it for what it is, you know. You know, like, in these other countries, that's what you'd be doing. A lot of people sit around here and think that, oh, it would be different if it was me. No, it wouldn't. You don't understand how powerful freaking... You don't understand how powerful, like, cultural influence is, dude. It's incredibly powerful. It's incredibly powerful. So, you will be doing a lot of things that you probably wouldn't think that you'd be doing if you were born somewhere else. So, I'm happy at the fact that, you know, I wasn't born there and I can choose here. And then again, like, you know, for my own sake, I have to see the world for what it is, and I have to see the fact that, hey, listen, there are certain decisions that are going to lead to some really uncontrollable outcomes. And in this day and age, like, do you really want to have that? I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't, but personally, no. You know, I want to control what kind of outcomes I'm going to have here. I want to control, you know, the odds. Because the odds right now, as to begin with, you know, I can't control for anything. But at least in the realm of the odds of who I let into my life, right? Who I let get close to me and stuff like that. I can't control that. I 100% can't control that, and so I'm going to, you know. It's really sad to see that because there's a lot of guys that, again, feel like they need to have families and stuff like that, but... son of a gun. You know, I've always said this, again, you know, not everyone should be a parent, not by any means, but it does suck to see these instances where, like, here is a guy who is going to probably make a relatively alright parent, right? You know, he may not be rich, but he's busting his balls and he's providing for his kid and stuff like that, but his freaking whore of a freaking mom, of the kids at least, right? Just decides, yeah, F you, I'm gonna try and screw you over, and I don't care that we're destroying a kid, you know, like, it's pretty crappy to see. Because listen, at the end of the day, people try and make it seem like, you know, like all this stuff that you say, all this stuff that you see online, that's not the real world. It doesn't happen that frequently. Oh, yes, it does. Oh, yes, it does. People just don't want to talk about it. In the instances where people are talking about it, they make it seem like you shouldn't say a word. That's just the norm. I don't care that your parents got separated. I don't care that your parents got divorced. I don't care that they used you as a weapon. You know, we should just accept it and still, again, you know, just mindlessly line up, you know, to hitch ourselves together only to get freaking screwed in the arse with divorce rape. It's no thank you. No thank you. No thank you. No, you don't have to do that, guys. You don't have to take stupid deals like that and just put that freaking gun, metaphorically speaking, in your mouth and pull the trigger. Or at least I'd like to say that it's more like you put the gun in the other person's hands, the loaded gun, and you just hope that they won't pull the trigger. You know? My question is, why does the gun need to be there to begin with? You know, people try and pretend like people try and pretend like there is no gun, but there is a gun. There's a gun. Why does it need to be there? You know, that's what I want to know. But all in all, right, I guess I'm going to just try and leave it with this, considering that, you know, I'm just trying to keep myself awake right now. You gotta be accountable to yourselves, and you gotta remember that regardless of what you intend, regardless of what you might want, you can't control another person. And the simple answer is this, there's no controlling what someone's going to become in the future, because at the end of the day, you can't control people. You control yourself. You control yourself. You don't control people. You control yourself. And I see it all the time, like just in this case of when I moved up here. We moved up here essentially because someone, again, who was family just started behaving different. And that got us into a heck of a lot of problems where we essentially, had to move from where we are. Went about going homeless for like a week, and yeah. And there's no denying that, for example, like, we're living in somebody else's house right now, currently, right? They could, in theory, change as well. And it could screw a lot of stuff up. Like, that's why you gotta really be careful about who you're letting into your life, because, again, change is a constant. Change is a constant. It sounds kind of like crazy considering the word change and then the word constant means, but it is ironic, but it's the truth. Change is constant. But what kind of changes are going to happen? It's, only time will tell. But I'm going to go ahead and end it here, boys. I'm not really going to have the most eloquent of words right now, because I'm telling you, sure, I feel like a lot better than I did like the last time on the 4 hours, but it's still 4 hours, and I'm sure that as I get into this shift, it's not going to be fun. And I also got to say this, man, I really think it's hilarious that, me, the employee, not the manager, right, is consistently coming here before the managers. I'm just saying, like, it's pretty freaking stupid, man. Because if you ask me, if anything, I think that the freaking managers should have to prove that they're good for the position by actually being here early, because there's a lot that they could do to, like, set up to make sure that we're ahead of schedule if they would just come a little bit early, because if you come late, they're up your arse, but, if they come late, then, well, it is what it is. And I'm saying this to someone who doesn't come late. I'm just saying this is the truth. Like, I think it's kind of ridiculous that, let's say that someone is coming late, like, I don't know, like, maybe 5 minutes late every day. I don't think that that's worth giving this man some trouble over, 5 minutes late is pretty freaking reasonable in terms of, like, something like, say, traffic jams and stuff like that, right? The manager comes late, because they're supposed to open at a certain time, but, no one's going to say a word about that. But, it's another one of those things where it's just, nonsense, rules for thee, not for me, all that good stuff. But whatever, I'm here. I'm not trying to complain. I'm just saying. Again, thanks, guys, for watching. And I'm going to go ahead and listening. Well, if you're combining watching and listening, right? I'm telling you, my mind's not there right now, 4 hours of sleep. But again, thank you guys for watching and listening. God bless. I will see you guys next time.